Yo guys, James here, and today I'm gonna do some tips for you. Some SLSL Warlock tips. I'm gonna show the talents that I'm currently using, and I'm gonna show some macros, and I'm gonna give some tips on how to deal damage when focused and how to deal damage when not focused. But let's start. So, join the spec first. I think most of you should be running this spec at this point. It's pretty standard. You can swap some things here. If you play a super aggressive comp and you only really care about trees, you can swap off Demonic Resilience. You can put it in Master Demonologist, or you can put it in Fell Concentration and you remove one of Suppression if you have enough spell hit. And you can play around a little bit with the spec. Depends on what you want to play, but this is pretty standard. I don't think you should be playing at the moment any other spec. You don't have enough hit to remove from suppression to put into Fell Concentration. Um, So it's the SLSL Warlock spec that pretty much every Warlock uses. Now, in terms of macros, I'm gonna show some of my macros or all of my macros, and let's start with the AoE one. I love modifiers macros because it just allows you to have one bind that you can modify with Shift, Alt, Control to to not take up space on the action bar. Now this one is the Rain of Fire rank 1. I don't have maxed Rain of Fire because it's not really that useful. On shift I do the big Hellfire, and on alt I do the rank 1 Hellfire. This is just to knock out rogues mostly, especially when they vanish. For example, if they blind your healer, and they vanish, you can go on top of your healer. Let's pretend your healer it's the pet. You go on top of your pet and you just press Hellfire. And most of the times you can actually knock a bad rogue. Good rogues will see the animation and know when to go in. Now, Curse of Exhaustion, it's also kind of the same. I just have a modifier with the so it's easier, and the modifier is shift only for focus, so you don't have to target the target that you want to slow down. This is very useful against priest teams because you just want to slow down the priest before he gets a fear, and it's how I slow down most priests. The same with coil. I have a focused death coil and a normal death coil, and it's pretty much the same. Sometimes you want to death coil the focus target to either get CC or to get a coil into a fear, and that's how I do it. If it's only for CC, if it's for doing damage, you should be targeting them. Now I'm gonna show one that I don't use, but you can use if you want to be super tryhard, but I really don't want to. So sometimes fear breaks to dots, and what happens here is you can, for example, if you're facing a mirror, a lock druid, and you're playing lock druid, you can have modifiers for your dots where you apply the rank 1. So for example, let's pretend this guy is a druid, I fear him, and then I press shift and 2 in my case because I have corruption on 2, shift 2, and I can put a small dot on him which won't break the fear for sure, and it will act as a dispel protection. Now I don't use any of this because I think it's a waste of time. Also, another thing that you can do, which I really don't, is just to have this modifier instead of corruption rank 1. You just cast modifier shift at focus, and you can have like legit focus dotting, so you might not be targeting him, and you press shift or whatever modifier you want, and you dot him regardless. I've been thinking about making this one. It's really good against some comps where there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of stuff going on, and you don't really want to de-target your target. And you can do that, but it's pretty much the same as just targeting, so you don't really lose time with it. Especially if you have arena 1, 2, 3 binded, which I do. Now this is a standard one. It's the CS 1, 2, 3 on arena 1, 2, 3. This is my 1, 2, 3, and I also attached sacrifice, seduction, and fire shield. This is really good because it helps on the starting area when you summon like an imp and you want to give the shield to anyone, and then you need to sacrifice your felguard. It's also good in PvE when you need CC. You just bring the succubus out and you cast seduction, and you don't need a different bind. This is my enemy devour. I have it also on a modifier. With no mod it's on the target, with a modifier it's on the focus target. This helps me not having to target, for example, the druid that innervates, or a target that is behind the pillar, and I need to get like a devour, a really important devour, usually innervate, and this helps me quite a bit. Now this one is just a show tooltip, and this was because one of my add-ons wasn't working, so I needed like a space, so I just did the Focus Arena 1. Currently it's working, but I don't really need to swap it. But yeah, just a show tooltip macro. This is the Fear 1, 2, 3. Um, Also a pretty standard macro. If you have Fear on the same, let's say I have on 4. If you have on 4 and you like to use like shift 4 and all of that, you can use a modifier macro and only have taking one spot. But since my Fear 3 it's a bit different, I don't use it. Again, with tongues, a modifier macro for focus and main target. If I don't press any shift, it's on my target. If I press alt, it's on my focus. This is very useful against any caster that you want to have on focus as well, because sometimes, again, to apply a curse, this is very useful against RMP, for example, where you're not really targeting the mage at all and you just want to apply focus. This is something that I've been. This is a focus pet attack. It's here. It has a show tip to fail domination. This is what I use to send my pet to attack a focus target. I can show you. This is really good against warriors, for example, where they instantly charge you and you don't really want to target the enemy druids to send the pet, so you just do the focus thing. Let's try it out here, and all you need to do is just press the focus and your pet go on the focus target. It's nothing insane. Now this one is probably one of the most important ones. Let me just kill this wolf, which is the Devour, friendly Devour. I have it on a modifier as well, and with no mod it's on my healer, with the alt it's on my rogue, with shift it's on me, and with control it's on my own pet. This is really important to have on all of these targets, sometimes on the pet, because for example against the mirror you don't really have dots. You might not really have dots or your druid, or even have LOS, so the pet can't really dispel you, and you dispel the pet. This is pretty good. Here it's just a show tooltip, since I want Howl to show. It's Shadow Bolt for the Nightfall procs. and I wanted to show Hall of Terror to keep my UI as clean as possible. Here it's actually just a Searing Pain Incinerate, so these are the two spells that you use mostly when you're free casting, and you want to do big damage, you want to have like all of your dots, Immolate, and then you can Incinerate if you have Immolate still up, or you can just Searing Pain. I have it on the same bind kind of, just modifying it with an again, just with a modifier. Here is just a modifier for my mount, so I don't spend any action bar space. This used to be an old. Okay, this one is my favorite one because of the starting area. It just puts everything I want. So 5, it's Soul Link. If I put it with control, it's my armor. This is gonna be really important in round because you want to swap between armors. And with an alt, it's my voidwalker, my instant summon voidwalker, and with shift, it's my instant summon felhunter. You can also make these instant summons if you want. I'm gonna do it soon. I'm still not really tryharding. To have also spell lock on focus, since whenever you do something like cast a new fell hunter, I can't really show it here. I'm gonna show it outside. Whenever you fell down a new pet, it has no cooldowns on what you just did. So, for example, I actually need to bind this, but I just spell locked, and now if I just instantly summon another fell hunter, I have spell lock again. This is very useful for double DPS, mostly in twos, but it can also be very useful in threes. I just don't really do it, since usually I don't have shards to spend like this, and I'm not that try hard, but you can do that. Now this is simple, just a major spell stone, but I don't use this, so I'm not gonna show you this one. This is another macro that is really important, which is the life tap max ranked and the life tap that is not max ranked. The life tap that is rank 4, you can also use rank 3. Now the difference is pretty big. I need to spend mana. Let's spend a little bit of mana here. Because, for example, if you're not being focused, or you have, like, for example, if you play with the druid and you have like 3 life bloons, you can life tap maxed, right? And you get 1.6 mana. Now, if you're being focused and you need mana, you need to start using the other ranks, right? So this helps quite a bit, um, alleviate a little bit of the pressure whenever you're targeted. This is my totem stump macro. If it wasn't this, I would use a mouse over macro. I did it in Cataclysm after or in Wrath. I don't remember when they removed totem stomping, but whenever they removed totem stomping, I actually just put this on mouse over. So whenever you mouse over and press it, the pet attacks that target. This is pretty simple. This one. It's mostly against shamans, so. And now this one, it's very important because if you use Spellstone, which you should because it dispels all harmful magic effects, so you should always have this, even against, for example, Druid Warrior. If the Druid just applies, for example, Fairy Fire, you just use this, and then by pressing this, I swap to my wand. And this is really important because you gain a little bit more stats. And now let's go to my specific. Okay, target arena 1. I don't use this one anymore. This is my cannibalize. Um, but I wanted to show amplify curse, so I have it here. I don't really use cannibalize that much, but since there was one game where actually had to open the spellbook to to use it, I just decided to bind it. This is a pretty simple cast sequence for unending breath and detect invisibility, which are trash debuffs which you should always buff your team with in 2s, 3s, 5s, whatever. And now, yeah, this is my macro for to find people, to find rogues that are in stealth, and you just spam this macro and you either get the Curse of Exhaustion or Devour Magic. I put the Devour Magic here because I've had some situations where I see the rogue, I'm spamming this, but at the same time that I see him, he just saps me, and then I need to actually send my pet and it disappears, so I just decided to, or did try to devour and it disappears, so I decided to put Devour here as well. Okay, now that we've seen the macros and the talents, let's go to the add-ons. There's a lot of stuff that you don't really need, but Arena Binds, it's a pretty good add-on. It shows you this. Where is it? I think it's targeting. You can just bind the focus arena 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the same with target. And now Atlas Loot, all basic buffs, it's what allows you to show the buffs here, which I don't remember the command, but I think it's like basic buffs. Yeah, it allows you to move around, and it shows you the buffs a bit closer to your character, so you don't have to spend much time looking for example, wound poison stacks. It's way easier to do this. I have for the battle for Azra to UI. I grown to actually like it. I think it's actually pretty good, so I decided to use it. Big debuffs, which shows you the fears, for example. I'm gonna show you this. I should just stay outside, to be honest. Um, Big debuffs, which you can customize, by the way. It can show on the side or up. Uh, but since up I already use a weak aura for the dots, I didn't really want to have it up, so I put it to the right. And you can prios the spells you want to use or you want to see more. Let's see, what do I use more? Classic aura durations, classic camera distance, details. I'm trying this, but I haven't tested yet, which is to highlight the magic buffs that can be purged, but I don't think it's working properly. What more? Key bindings, add-ons. Item racks that allows me to swap between PvE and PvP gear. Let's see. What more? Loss of control alerter. This shows the BFA. I think it was in BFA or Legion. Loss of control, which shows you in the middle of the screen, exactly like retail. I think it's pretty good, but it's not really needed. But I think it's pretty good. And now Omnibar, OmniCC, S Arena, which is the one I use, and that's it. I think it's pretty. I don't have that many add-ons for PvP. It's mostly for PvE actually that I have. Okay, so in terms of damage, I'm gonna give you a little tip. For example, now dots tick every 3 seconds, like you can see, which means that every time you refresh a dot, you're actually losing on damage because you're not really increasing the damage. You don't have a pandemic window like on retail. What this means is that to maximize your damage, you actually need to let the dot run out, do the last tick, and as it does the last tick, you need to refresh it. You shouldn't refresh it on 1 or 2 seconds. You're actually losing quite a bit of damage by doing that. That is one tip that I can give it to you, because it's a mistake that I see a lot of warlocks do. Now, there's some situations where you want to refresh the dots before they run out, because you're going to lose on damage regardless. And that's, for example, against rogues, which have kidney shot available, and that they are about to stun you. Or, for example, if you're being super focused and you want to run around a pillar, you should refresh your dots before you run around the pillar, because then you're still doing damage even though you're playing defensive. But on most cases, you shouldn't have to redot the target. You not redot. You shouldn't reapply the dot while the dot is running, because you're actually losing on damage. Now, what should you do, for example, if you're free casting? Let's say, because I see that there's a lot of warlocks that do this mistake. Damage ain't everything. So, for example, let's say you're playing against a priest rogue or a priest DPS in twos. You don't want to dot both targets. You want to CC the priest and then dot the main target. If the priest is the main target, you dot the priest alone, because of Prayer of Mending. Prayer of Mending is insanely good. Now, what do you do, for example, if you have all of your dots done? Let's say you have Immolate and you're being focused. Now, this depends. What I've learned is that casting Searing Pain, for example, against a rogue, it's just completely useless, because the knockback that the fast weapons they have, it just it's legit a waste of time. Really fast cast, 1.5 seconds, becomes at least 2 to 2.5 seconds. So what you want to do against rogues, most of the time, not all the time, is actually drain life. Now, this depends on how the game is going, because since you don't have fel concentration, it means that you're gonna lose a lot of mana. So you need to see the situation. Can I life tap? If I can life tap because I'm like full HP, then you drain mana. If you can't, you try to get the Searing Pains. Also, if you're free casting, I'm gonna fear this mob to show you. If you're free casting, you want to apply always Immolate, because Immolate actually counts towards Soul Siphon. So if you drain with Immolate up, you actually have a bigger drain. You saw it, 427 I think. Let's see without Immolate. 403. It also it counts for the drain life, which is pretty big, as you can see. Now, let's pretend you're free casting. They are targeting your healer. You can't really CC. You can't really help. So in that case, what you want to do is apply all of your dots and actually start casting Incinerate, because Incinerate does insane amount of damage. And it's actually more damage than if you cast Shadow Bolt, because Shadow Bolt, it's a longer cast than Incinerate. Okay, now that we've seen on how to deal damage, let's and actually a few tricks with the Fel Hunter, which you can double Spelllock, double Devour. So for example, let's say you're playing against a mage and you want to double Devour. You just you didn't devour like a sheep on your teammate and you want to devour it again, because else you lose. You just summon a new Fel Hunter and you devour and you have access to Spelllock again. Now, what more can I tell you? I actually think it's pretty much it. There's a few situations that I might be forgetting, but usually it's like this. Also, Shadow Word, you need to know when to use Shadow Word. Sometimes it's completely useless to use Shadow Word, because you're not gonna take any damage, and it's global that you're spending on nothing. Even against Lock Druid now, if I only have like Curse of Tongues, I shouldn't be shadow warding, even though the cooldown is the same as the duration, because I'm losing a global to do something else. And globals in TBC, especially for affliction warlocks, are very important. That's why you need to know when to use your stuff. It's what TBC has that I love, and to some extent, Wrath of the Lich King. So using Shadow Ward when you don't really have dots, it's actually a global that could be used to maybe kill the enemy up the enemy. But yeah, I think that's about it. Learn how to use Amplify Curse as well. For example, if you face a mage candy curse, same with the druid. So whenever you press Amplify Curse, you kinda need to know that they are not gonna decurse, especially when it's Curse of Exhaustion, because Amplifying Curse, I usually use Amplify Curse with the Curse of Agony in trees, and in twos I use Amplify Curse with Curse of Exhaustion most of the time. Depends on the comp, just to give a little breather to my healer, especially. Also, Tainted Blood, you can have it on auto. I especially don't like it. I just binded it, and whenever they hit my pet, it lasts for quite a bit, 1 minute, so it's not on any type of global. Just put it in a simple bind and you should be fine. But yeah, guys, I think I've gave enough tips. Um, I showed the macros and the add-ons. In terms of binds, my binds are really weird, so don't go from that. To be honest, just go from feeling what you're feeling. And yeah, I hope I helped you. And yeah, that's it. Um, I want to ask you guys something and answer on the comments. If you would actually be interested, actually asked my druid, interested in how we review a game. So, for example, I was streaming. The last time I was streaming, we kind of reviewed the game that went horrifically bad. It was super bad against the WLD, and you can see our thought process. So, for example, on the game analysis, we can have like his point of view of the situation and tell me if that's something you would like. I haven't asked him yet. Well, I did ask him if he wants to do like that once or twice. But yeah, I would like to know your feedback, because you might actually be a druid watching the video because you want to learn how to play the comp or something, and maybe it would be cool to have his point of view. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Peace.